Hey friends, it's Maddie. Welcome back. Today we're going to be doing my September wrap-up. So I'm going to be talking about all of the books I've read in September and how I feel about them. So I read 16 books in the month of September, which is pretty good for me. I'm pleased with that number. A lot of them were contemporary or romance, a lot more lighthearted stuff this month. I had a bit of a difficult month, so when I'm feeling down, I tend to turn to lighthearted, more contemporary stuff, in terms of reading at least. Okay, so let's see. The first book I finished in September was Get a Life, Chloe Brown. I started this back in July and read like 40 pages of it or something like that and just never picked it back up. But like I said, I was feeling contemporary romance, and I just felt like picking this one up because I've heard so many people talk about it so positively. You're following Chloe Brown, obviously. She has a near-death experience like right at the beginning of this book, and it causes her to reevaluate her life, and she makes what she calls her Get a Life list, which is basically like a list of things that once she does it, she thinks that that will mean that she has a life or whatever. And of course there's a romance element. It's with her like superintendent for her apartment. I thought this book was really cute. The romance between Red and Chloe was very believable. I felt their chemistry right away. I took off points for some of the stuff seemed to drag out too long for me. And then I didn't like the moment that's like, 80% of the way through the book where they like have their little misunderstanding or like miscommunication. I did not like that. It irritates me to no end when characters just need to talk to each other and all their problems will be solved, but they decide they're not going to talk to each other. Like, I think real people most of the time will talk to each other. Oh yeah, I have my coffee today because I haven't been awake that long. Today I'm drinking Mint Invaders from Chocolate Space from Bones Coffee Company. I really like this company. I did like a sample pack, and this is one of the flavors I chose, and I really like them. I saw ads for them on Facebook, and that's kind of where I picked them up from. Next, I read The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. That is another contemporary romance, and you're following the maid of honor and the best man from a wedding. Everyone gets food poisoning, and the maid of honor and best man are the only two that don't get it, and the bride has a non-refundable honeymoon, so they go on it instead of the bride and groom. Of course, it's like a silly premise, but it's romance. We expect it. I actually really liked this one. So it's supposed to be like a enemies to lovers type thing, but are they really that much enemies at the beginning? Who knows? I liked the chemistry between the two characters. It was very believable. Their banter was hilarious. There's this one point where they're intentionally calling each other by the wrong name, and I like literally laughed out loud because all of the main character calls the guy Aragon, and I just thought it was hilarious. But it was a funny book. It was very enjoyable. I gave it 4 stars, again, because at the end there was a really stupid, like, it was a situation where a character was given all of the evidence that you would need to believe a specific thing, and he was just like, oh no, I don't believe that. So I had to take a star off for that because it was annoying. Like, I don't want to read about stupid people. Next, I read The Bride Test by Helen Hoang. This is another contemporary romance. This is the second book in the Kiss Quotient series. I read the Kiss Quotient, I think it was last year, and I really liked it. So in this book, you're following Kai, who is Michael from the first book's cousin, and his mom wants him to get married, but he doesn't really want to get married. He doesn't think he can. Love. And so she gets him like essentially a mail order bride, but she actually goes over to Vietnam and meets the woman and then brings her over and is like, you can marry my son and all that stuff. And so it's the relationship between those two. I really liked Esme, who is the main female character of this book. I really loved her, and her independent streak and her, I don't know, she was a real go-getter, and I just really loved her personality. And Kai is the sweetest thing in the world, so I just love both of them. I gave this one 4.5 stars. Next I read Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is a young adult contemporary novel, and it's told in verse. It does feature a female-female romance, which I was really excited about. And you're essentially following these two girls. One lives in New York and one lives in the Dominican Republic. And there is this flight that is going from New York to the Dominican Republic, I think. It's going one way or the other, and it crashes, and everybody on it dies, and these two girls find out that they have the same dad, and he has been traveling back and forth, and he's died on this plane crash. So it's about the aftermath of dealing with that, and you know, their eventual coming together and finding out about each other. I enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. It's a little bit more of like a slice of life type story, where like you're just popping your head in for a little bit of their life and then popping your head right back out. And I didn't feel like I got enough of the characters to really develop that relationship with them where I was feeling the things that they were feeling. So while I thought the story was good, I didn't necessarily think that the characters were as developed as I wanted them to be. Next I read Orphan Island by Laurel Snyder. This is a middle grade contemporary with a little bit of fantastical element, maybe a little speculative in there. This book, you're following this group of children who live on this island, and there are only 9 children there at a time. And then every year around the same time, a boat comes and brings a new child who will be the youngest on the island. And then the oldest child from the island leaves on that boat at the same time. And it's like a magical boat, like it just kind of like comes up with the child. The old kid gets in the boat and it zooms away. We are following Ginny, whose best friend just left on the boat, and she's now the oldest member on the island, and so she has to teach the youngest member who just came how to live on the island, but she also has to prepare to leave the island. And it's sort of a story about growing up and letting go of your childhood. I gave this book 3 stars. I understand that this book is written for children, but the main character of Ginny was insufferable. I know that, you know, children don't necessarily always think about other people in situations, but she was really selfish. She treated everybody else on the island like crap, even though she claimed to like really care about them, and she neglected her duties as an elder, and I really didn't like that. There were some things that weren't explained enough for me, and I understand that it's more of like an allegory type story, but in order for it to hold its own weight and make sense, there were just a couple things that I wish I had been explained, which of course I can't tell you because then it would be a spoiler. But yeah, so I gave that one 3 stars. I still think it was enjoyable read. 3 stars for me is like a good book. Next I read The Mermaid's Night by Joe Myles. This is a retelling of classic fairy tales in a romance. So essentially someone dies in real life and their fairy godmother comes, and they're able to get their life back if they can jump into a fairy tale and complete the story as it's supposed to, and then they can choose to stay in the fairy tale or go back to their regular life. This one we're following a girl who is in the Little Mermaid story. I give this book 3 stars, mostly because of the concept and the conflicts that were jumping up. I really did not like the main male character in this book. I understand that the book is supposed to take place in like, I think it's like 1600s France, but the guy was a huge douche. It doesn't have to be historically accurate, and you don't have to treat women like shit just because it's a historical book. He was horrible, and I just could not get along with the romance, and it felt like he accepted her being a mermaid pretty easily. Like he was just super chill with it in the 1600s, and that just seems really strange to me. Then I read Something Borrowed, Something Blood-Soaked by Christa Carmen. This is a collection of short stories, mainly centering around addiction and relapse and that sort of thing. I gave this 3 stars because there were some stories I really liked, some I didn't really like. I think it's hard for me personally for an anthology to get more than 3.5 stars, because inevitably there's some stories that probably shouldn't be in there. Let me just tell you real quick which ones I liked. The 2 that I especially liked out of this were Red Room and Liquid Handcuffs. The ending of Liquid Handcuffs was everything. I loved that one. So if you're gonna read anything out of that, I recommend Liquid Handcuffs, but Red Room was very scary as well. So those were both good. Let's see, next I actually read a physical book. I read a lot of books from my library, and I own a lot of Kindle books, and I also have Kindle Unlimited. So inevitably there's going to be a lot of pictures up here, but I will hold up the ones that I do physically own. I am trying to make it a point to read more of my physically owned books since I have so many. This is only a small portion of them. So yeah, next I finished Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I read this for my Gothic literature class. You can see I tabbed the crap out of it for an essay that I was writing. I've never read this entirely. I've just read portions of it, and I had seen the Universal Monster movie. I really enjoyed this despite it being different from what I expected. I didn't know there was a framing story where Victor Frankenstein is telling his tale to someone else, and I thought that was very effective. It was a very effective way to get the story across. I gave this book 4 stars. I am interested in potentially checking out the 1818 version of this. I heard a book Olive talking about it, and I guess it's the original way that Mary Shelley wrote this, so I would be interested in looking at that at some point. But I did really enjoy this, and I got an A on the paper, so there you go. Next I finished Scythe by Neal Shusterman. This is the first book in the Scythe series. You're following these 2 apprentice scythes, and a scythe is somebody who, okay, so this takes place in a world where humans have conquered death, and so people don't die anymore, but people are still being born, so overpopulation became a problem. So these people called scythes are tasked with killing like they have a quota for the amount of people that they have to kill in a year, and they are sort of allowed to do it in however they want within reason. And in this book we're following 2 apprentice scythes, people who are trying to become scythes, and it was really interesting. I really liked it. I gave it 5 stars, but I will say that the romance in here, I wish it was just like a really, really good friendship, because it basically seemed like one. The way that the 2 interacted with each other seemed more friendly to me, and then I felt like it tried to like shoehorn a little romance in there, and I didn't need that, but I still gave it 5 stars because it was amazing. The next book I read was What Lies Between Us, which is the new John Marrs book, and I hated this book. I gave this book 2 stars, and the reason for that is mainly because the bulk of the conflict in this story revolved around one character's mental illness, and I don't want to disclose necessarily what that mental illness is because it could be a little bit of a spoiler, but it was basically everything that she did was blamed on this mental illness, and it was really infuriating because it, you know, it gives a bad name to people who have that mental illness, where like most people don't do the kind of stuff that this character did, and so it really aggravated me. And also it felt like these people lived in a town where police did not exist. Like if someone goes missing who has family, I'm pretty sure like someone is going to report it to the police. It felt so unbelievable. I couldn't deal with it. Actually, why did I even give this book 2 stars? This book, no, I'm giving this book 1 star because I don't have any redeeming qualities for it. Therefore, to me, that means it needs 1 star. So yeah, I am going to change that. Next, I read How the Light Gets In by Louise Penny. This is the 9th book in the Chief Inspector Gamache series. You're following a detective, Inspector Gamache, who investigates crimes in Quebec. I think it's like parts of Quebec that don't have like city jurisdiction or something like that. I'm not sure. But a lot of the cases take place in Three Pines, which is this really lovely small village that I would die to live in. And this book, let's see, what can I tell you about this book? Okay, so this book, you're following this woman, or you're following Inspector Gamache as he investigates the case of this woman who was part of a famous set of, I think it was quintuplets, and she's the last one and she just died and no one knew that she was actually that person. And there's also another part of the story that is the essentially through line story that has been going for quite a few of these books, which I can't exactly talk about, but it has to do with like stuff going on in his department and with people that he works with or has worked with in the past. And that storyline does get resolved in this, and the ending of this made me cry real tears because something that was going on with one of my favorite characters is finally resolved and everything was fine, and I was so happy. I give this book 5 stars. It might be my favorite of the series that I have read, and I loved it so much. I don't have the next book, which is very sad. I need to get my hands on it because I want to read it immediately. Then I was participating in, or attempting to participate in, the last Buzzwordathon that Books and Lila did. So I read A Midnight Dance, which was an ebook that I owned. I think I either got it for free or really cheap on Kindle. So I was like, okay, I will read this. I should not have read it. It was a waste of my time. I actually probably only got to like the 90% of reading this book, and then I skimmed the last 10% because I couldn't deal with it. It's like a Cinderella retelling. I don't know what it is with fairy tale retellings this month, but that's a thing. First of all, I did not see the Cinderella connection at all, except for like one mention of the specific pair of shoes, and that was it. There was no like horrible like stepmother who was doing this, and it just did not follow the Cinderella story at all. And again, the guy in this was a huge douche and I did not like him. So 2 stars, because there were a couple parts that I found really funny or like really good. Then I read You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. This is a YA contemporary. You were following Liz, who is trying to get into this really elite music college, I think it was, and she doesn't get the scholarship that she applied for, but in her town, if you win prom, you get a bunch of scholarship money, apparently, and so she is in the running to be prom queen now. And there's also a relationship, a female-female relationship between her and another one of the girls who is running for prom queen, and it was so cute. I really loved the romance between the 2 girls. And I do think that the conflict between them totally made sense, especially for teenagers. It didn't seem like some random thing that was just thrown in there for them to be like having an argument about something. I also really liked that this book did add social commentary. So there are parts of this book that deal with racism. There are parts of it that deal with homophobia and bullying, and there was a really sweet friendship about reconnecting with people from your past, which I really liked, and I just want every person to read this book. I just think it's amazing. I really enjoyed my time with it. Then I read Club Dead by Charlaine Harris. This is the 3rd book in the Sookie Stackhouse series, which is the book series that the TV show True Blood is based off of. I've never seen True Blood, but I like paranormal romance, so I picked these up. Yeah, this is the 3rd book, and we're following Sookie, and she goes to Jackson, Mississippi, in order to figure out what has happened to her boyfriend Bill, because the lead of his vampire like group, Eric, thinks that something is wrong and that someone is torturing Bill. And even though he and Sookie are broken up at the time, she still cares about him, so she's gonna go find him. I adore this book. We met a vampire, or We met a werewolf named Alcide, and I loved him so much. I want him to be in every single book. I know that he's not going to be the one that Suki ends up with, but they were adorable together, and I loved them so much. And I just want books and books of those two together. So yeah, I gave this one 4 stars. Highly recommend. And then the last book I finished in September was Wild, From Lost to Found on the Pacific Crest Trail by Cheryl Strayed. This is a memoir written by columnist Cheryl Strayed, and it is about her time hiking the Pacific Crest Trail after the death of her mother and having some drug issues and things like that. So the book is a lot about her dealing with grief and overcoming the person that she was in the past, and I really liked the way that she wove stories from her past in with stories from what was going on the Pacific Crest Trail. So I give this book 4 stars. I do think it could have been condensed a little bit. Some of the stuff that was included probably didn't need to be, so that's just what I went with. 4 stars. Okay, so those are all the books that I read in September. I'm going to quickly talk about the 2 books that I'm currently in the midst of. I don't really do a TBR because I've never been able to stick to one. I'm very much a mood reader. As you can see, this month I read a ton of contemporary and romance, which is not normal for me at all, but I was having a rough month. I needed something light and fluffy. Got what I wanted. This month I'm definitely trying to read more spooky books. You know, it's spooky month. I'm trying, but we shall see what I feel like reading. So first of all, the book that I have started, I've read like 25 pages of it, is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This is the second book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. This directly follows the events of the end of the book and how Feyre is dealing with the aftermath of that book. And I'm liking it so far, 25 pages in. I know shit kind of hits the fan in this book, so we shall see. A lot of people say this is their favorite in the series, so I'm very excited. I gave A Court of Thorns and Roses 4 stars, so hopefully I really like that one. Then next I'm going to be starting Dracula. I have to read this for my Gothic literature class. I didn't realize how long this book is. I guess it doesn't look that long, but it's almost 500 pages, which I didn't realize. I've never read this before, and I have never seen the Universal Monster movie, so I plan on doing both this month. I think it's a perfect book for October. And yeah, I have an audiobook that has a full cast, but it includes Tim Curry and Alan Cumming, so I'm very excited about that. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed finding out about the books that I read in September and getting a little preview of what I'm going to be reading in October. Please like the video if you enjoyed my content. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what your favorite book that you read in September was, or what book you're most looking forward to reading in October. And hit that subscribe button if you want to see more content from me. And yeah, I think that'll do it. Have a good day.